Hi everyone, my name is Kayla Deek. I will be presenting information on Forsyth County Schools today. Currently, I am a self-contained teacher in a moderate intellectual disability classroom for students in 3rd through 5th grade. However, I also attended school for kindergarten through 12th grade in Forsyth County Schools, so I have had the opportunity to see it grow over the last few decades. So here we have a representation of who Forsyth County serves. From the outside, we rely on staff, parents, local businesses, and citizens to assist in serving each individual student. Businesses obviously directly assist with donations and fundraising, whereas the other pieces relate directly to the teaching as well as the emotional and physical support of the students. Okay, here we have Forsyth County, like most school districts, has core values. So the vision for Forsyth County is quality learning and superior performance for all. The mission of Forsyth County Schools is to prepare and inspire all students to contribute and excel. The beliefs go along with the teach. The T is for trust among all stakeholders is vital. E, expectations influence accomplishments because everyone has the capacity to learn. A school community partnership is essential. C, change creates opportunity. H, high-performing leadership makes visions a reality. I have seen a lot of changes recently in the school with different trainings, different ways that they're teaching us to approach instruction, and it's all because of the way that they are trying to increase scores and grades throughout the county for all students. All right, so next I'm going to go through some of the demographic data for the county with you. Okay, here we have the current enrollment for the county by race and ethnicity. This is for this last school year, 2015 through 2016. As you can see, Forsyth County is primarily white students. The next highest categories are students who are Hispanic and Asian. They each have a little over 3,000 males and females in each of those categories. Okay, here is some additional enrollment data. This will show a trend over the last 3 years. The first table on the left shows the enrollment numbers for each grade level. Over the last 3 years, we have seen an increase in about 200 more kindergartners entering the system than the previous years. There was also a big jump of numbers in the 5th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grades. This trend shows that the county is constantly growing. It has shown an increase in student numbers each year. Working in the county, I can directly see the effects of this with new elementary, middle, and high schools being built to be able to house all of these students. The growing numbers of students is also a flag for counties to be sure that they have enough staff to educate these students. So quickly, class sizes can begin to get too large, which makes effective teaching more and more difficult. Okay, the chart to the top right shows the enrollment by race over the last 3 school years. Students with limited English proficiency and students with disabilities have remained the same. Students eligible for free and reduced lunch have decreased by 2% in 2015. The population of Asian students has increased slightly over the last 3 years, and the percentage of white students has slightly decreased. This could just mean that the students moving into the county are of other races or ethnic groups, causing the percentages to slightly change. There have not been any significant changes in the race makeup of the county, however. The third chart on the bottom right shows the enrollment by programs. There has been a 1% decrease in the number of students receiving EIP services. This is an early intervention program for struggling students. Most of the other areas have remained constant. The only concern here would be the question of why are less students receiving EIP services? Is this causing more students to fall through the cracks? I guess we will be looking at additional data to help us determine that. Okay, so this chart shows the current enrollment in Forsyth County for students with disabilities by the specific disability that they have. As you can see, the highest percentage is students with speech-language impairments. Closely following are students with specific learning disabilities. So as you can see, over half of the students with disabilities are of intellectual levels that they can be educated in a general education classroom with just some special education support. Blind, deafblind, profound intellectual disabilities, and traumatic brain injuries are all less than 10 students each. So those percentages are the smallest percentages that you see on that chart. Okay, here this slide shows the percentage of students in Forsyth County who currently receive free and reduced lunch. 6 out of 40 schools have 30% or higher free and reduced percentages. The system average for Forsyth County is 16.54%. The statewide average is 62.29%. Forsyth County is fortunate that they have a much lower percentage of students receiving free and reduced lunch than the state average, showing that poverty is an issue, but not a huge issue in the county. Okay, here we have a chart that shows the graduation data for the school year 2015 to 2016. As you can see, the Forsyth County schools average much higher than the Georgia average for graduation rates. The Georgia average is 78.8%. Forsyth County's highest average is 98.2% at Lambert High School, and the lowest average is an 89% at Central High School. Looking at these percentages, my biggest concern would be, why is there a 9% difference in the graduation rates of two schools in the same county? I find it very interesting that the county, all schools can attend the same trainings, they have the same things that they're working towards, but yet there could be a 9% difference in graduation rates between two schools. Okay, here's some additional graduation data. This shows the total district percentage over the last 3 years. As you can see, Forsyth County went from a district average of 89.5% during the school year of 2012 to 2013 to a 94% average during the 2014 to 2015 school year. If you look at the chart that shows the graduation rate by ethnicity, you can see that the lowest graduation rate is within the Hispanic subgroup. However, the graduation rate for that subgroup has been constantly getting higher. During the school year of 2012 to 2013, the graduation rate was at 79.3%. But it is now at an 85.1%, showing that the county must have implemented some sort of program to ensure that these students are not being missed. If you look at the third chart that shows the graduation rate by other subgroups, you can also see that the graduation rate for all of these groups has increased. For students with disabilities, it has increased from 63.2% to a 75%. For limited English students, the graduation rate has increased from 54.2% to 63.3%. So this is something that the county has been doing a really good job of. Okay, This slide didn't really provide me a lot of information, but I decided to include it anyways. It shows us the number of students who graduated with each type of diploma. However, if there were not enough students in the group, meaning that there were less than 10, there is not a number in that category. It is difficult from this data to determine how many students with disabilities received special education diplomas. We can see the numbers in the years 2013 to 2014 and also the 2012 to 2013 years. However, I'm not sure of what the total number of students with disabilities was on those years, so it makes it difficult to know if that's a high percentage or a low percentage of students who received special education diplomas. Okay, this data shows the attendance data for the school years 2012 to 2015. For all students, the data has remained pretty consistent. There has not been higher than 7.7% of students missing more than 15 days of school. If you look at the table below, it shows the data for students with disabilities. These percentages are higher than compared to the percentages for all students. Approximately 10% of students with disabilities miss more than 15 days of school each school year. This could be due to different therapy appointments, doctor's appointments, and the fact that many of our students with disabilities have weakened immune systems, causing them to get sick more than the typical students. To the right is the table of students without disabilities. They average about 6.5% of students missing 15 or more days of school, which is about 4% lower than our students with disabilities. Okay, so the Georgia Appleseed has been working on the suspension rate for students in Georgia counties. They said that all of Georgia's children should earn a high quality high school education so that they are ready for college or career. These initiatives focus on efforts to reduce reliance on exclusionary disciplinary techniques so that we keep kids in class while maintaining a safe and productive learning environment for all students. For Forsyth County, we have a lower percentage of students being suspended than the state suspension rates. However, you can see that both the district and the state rates are slightly going down each year, which is good. We want those rates to be going down because it shows that there is a better implementation for discipline going on here than just suspending students. Okay, next I will present to you some of the student learning data for the county. First, we have data from the Georgia Milestones Test, which replaced the CRCT a couple of years ago. When looking at the males and the female totals, we can see that the majority of the students fall within the proficient learners category on the test. It looks as if Hispanic students are scoring the lowest on these tests, which could be due to a language barrier. It's very difficult to determine that, though. On this next slide, we have data for students with disabilities, without disabilities, and students who have limited English. Students with disabilities are scoring lower than students without disabilities and are falling in the areas of beginning learners to developing learners, meaning they are just starting to be able to access those standards. Students without disabilities fall within the proficient learners for the majority of the test takers. Students who have limited English are scoring very similarly to students with disabilities, and that they are falling in the beginning learner and developing learner categories. Again, this makes me wonder if it is due to a language barrier on the tests. Here we have some EOCT data, which is the end of course tests. Again, the majority of the students are scoring within the proficient learners categories. If you look at the second chart below, you can see that students with disabilities are falling into the beginning learners and developing learners categories again. Students without disabilities typically fall within the proficient learner category. Okay, this is data about GAA, which is the Georgia Alternative Assessment for students who are not able to access the Georgia Milestones test and need an alternative test. Since I am a teacher who has to give the GAA, I also understand the complications with the test in general. Each individual teacher makes up his or her own activities for this test to show the student accessing the standard. The student's score comes from his or her ability to show progress on the standard, or if the task has been made more difficult for them. In the school year 2012 through 2013, most of the students were scoring in the extending progress range. Whereas this last school year, you can see that most of them scored in the established progress range. My concern here is, why are the school scores dropping? Are teachers not putting in the same effort as they were just a few years ago? I wonder if teachers have learned what they need to submit in order to just get by. Because that established progress area is basically saying that you have passed. So I'm wondering if teachers are figuring out what activities they need to do in order to just pass. Okay, this slide shows data from the Student Health Survey. I pulled data from 6th graders and 12th graders so that we could compare their feelings. The first question was if they like school. The largest percentages of students only somewhat agreed to that statement. 29% of the 6th graders strongly agreed, but only 14% of the 12th graders strongly agreed. The percentage of students who strongly disagreed also differed in that only 5% of 6th graders strongly disagreed with the statement and 12% of 12th graders strongly disagreed. This could be an area of concern in that we do not want 12th graders feeling like they do not like school. This could be a year that some of these students drop out because they do not have the motivation to continue. So it's important that we find these students who are feeling like they don't like school, especially in their 12th grade year. They're almost to the end, and we want to make sure that they make it to graduation. The second statement was that I feel like I fit in at my school. Over half of the 6th graders said that they strongly agreed, whereas only 27% of 12th graders strongly agreed. 53% of them somewhat agreed. I feel like in high school, it's easy to feel like you do not fit in if you are not a part of a club or sport team. Most of those students are the ones who are highlighted and talked about, whereas others may feel like they are kind of forgotten about. Okay, so this next slide, again, just shows the graduation rates that we went over earlier. The graduation rate for the entire district for Forsyth County is 94%. Whereas for the state of Georgia, it is at 78.9%. That's something that the county can be proud of because they have worked at having a much higher graduation rate than the rest of the state. Okay, next I'm going to talk to you about some perception data. The first slide is data from the Title I annual report. As you can see, Forsyth County spent all of their budget for Title I. The largest expenditure was on instruction, and the smallest expenditure was on school administration. This shows that the priority is in finding ways to effectively teach students in these schools. Across the county, there are only 5 Title I schools and 30 that are not Title I. And you can see that we have 3 Title I elementary schools, 2 Title I middle schools, and 0 Title I high schools. Okay, this data comes from the Special Education Annual Report. We can look here. The first indicator was graduation rate, the percent of youth with IEPs graduating from high school with a regular diploma. The state target was 47%, and the district met that at a 60%. Okay, the dropout rate, the percent of youth with IEPs dropping out of high school. The state target is 5.9%, and Forsyth County only has a 3.2%. So only 3.2% of students with IEPs drop out of high school in Forsyth County. Okay, if you come down here, you can see the percentage of students with disabilities who participated in statewide assessments. Again, we met in all of these areas. The Y's mean that we met. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide. LRE is least restrictive environment. So a percent of children with IEPs aged 6 through 21 served inside the regular class 80% or more of the day. Forsyth County has 65% of their students in there for 80% or more of the day. We also have the percent of children with IEPs served inside the regular class less than 40% of the day, and we only have 14.5% students there. And then for students in a separate class, in a special education class, a residential facility, or hospital homebound placement, there's only 2% of students there. Sorry, I was just reading this, when I flipped back, I realized I was reading the state targets, not the district targets. We only have 0.4 students that are in a separate placement, 7% that are less than 40% of the day in gen ed, and 68.6% that are in gen ed for more than 80% of the day. And then to the left, you can see those are the state, that's what the state is aiming for. Okay, now if we come down here to preschool outcomes, number 7, this is where we started getting some N's. So let's look at this. This shows percent of preschool children with IEPs who demonstrate improved positive social emotional skills. So we are at a 60.6%, which is about 1.4% lower than the state. Also, it says percent of children aged 3 through 5 with IEPs who demonstrate improved acquisition and use of knowledge and skills. We're at 18.3%, whereas the state is at a 36.7%. And then the other one is the youth is showing improved use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs. Again, we're at a 65.6%, whereas the state is at a 71.5%. So we got N's on all those categories we did not meet. And then for parent involvement, percent of parents with a child receiving special education services who report that schools facilitated parent involvement as a means of improving services and results for children with disabilities. Here, we did not meet by 1%. Okay, so the areas that we did not meet the state requirements in are within the preschool years and also with parent involvement. The district needs to improve the instruction and identification going on during those preschool years because they are so critical to a child's performance throughout school. So again, here we have all Y's on the rest of this. We met in the rest of these areas, such as post-school outcomes, timely and accurate data, secondary transition. We met in all of those areas for the county. Okay, so this slide shows the special education parent survey report. Let's look through here. Let's see. The highest percentage said that teachers are available to speak with me. At the IEP meeting, we discussed accommodations and modifications that my child would need. 73% of the parents agreed with that. Teachers treat me as a team member, 71%. I am considered an equal partner with teachers and other professionals in planning my child's program, 70%. Let's come down here to the lowest scoring ones. Only 54% of parents said that the school gives them choices with regard to services that address my child's needs. 50% said that written justification was given for the extent that my child would not receive services in the regular classroom. 47% that the school offers parents training about special education issues. 43% that the school said that the school provides information on agencies that can assist their child in transition from school. And 42% that said that they were given information about organizations that offer support for parents of students with disabilities. So these are percentages that I feel can be easily increased if the special education teachers throughout the county are made aware of these parent concerns and what parents think teachers are not doing. A lot of these things can be easily adjusted. Okay, so next, here is some more data from the Georgia Student Health Survey. One of the statements here says that students are frequently recognized for good behavior. Sixth graders seem to strongly agree or somewhat agree, whereas 12th graders have more disagreement than the sixth graders. It is common in high school for teachers to stress so much about what needs to be done and what students can improve on that many times they forget to recognize them for the things they are doing right. The second statement said that they know an adult at school that they can talk to if they need help. The majority of 6th and 12th graders either strongly agree or somewhat agree with that statement. Okay, let's see here. The next statement is that parents or other adults at home think that education is important. Almost all of the 6th and 12th graders strongly agreed with that. There was a slight decrease with the 12th graders, but that could just be due to the fact that most of their work is more independent at that age rather than relying on parent help. And the last one is, my parents or other adults at my home think that it is important for me to graduate from high school. The 6th graders had 97% strongly agree with that, and the 12th graders had 88% strongly agree with that. Again, I feel like by the time you are in 12th grade, a lot of times your parents are not around as much. You're given more leeway, you're given more freedom, so they're not always talking to you about school. It's more of an independent learning time at that age. Okay, next I'm going to show you some of the process data. Okay, first I have the graduation targets for Forsyth Central High School in Forsyth County. For the year of 2014 to 2015, the school exceeded the state graduation rate in all areas except for students with disabilities. The 2 years prior, the school met or exceeded the graduation rate for students with disabilities. This brings up a red flag of why is the graduation rate declining for students with disabilities? Are some students getting missed, or is there an issue with instruction for these students? That's definitely something that the county needs to look at here. Okay, here you will see the IE squared accountability for an elementary and a middle school. In addition to federal accountability, each school in Forsyth County has a 5-year goal that includes annual performance targets for AYP, subgroups to close any achievement gaps in performance relative to the state percent exceeds. Where subgroups are outperforming the state percent exceeds, the annual performance targets will be to increase achievement or at a minimum maintain. So first I have Big Creek Elementary, which is an elementary school in Forsyth County. If you look at the data from the last 5 years, you will see that they have increased in all of these areas. So for all students, they have increased except in the area of students with disabilities. So they went from a 67.1 in 2012 to a 58.8 in 2014. So about 9 percentage points of a drop here. Again, this is a red flag that there must be something going on with the instructional time or approaches for our students with disabilities. Okay. Here we have the IE squared accountability for, let's see, South Forsyth Middle School. And let's see, they are exceeding in all of their areas. They have increased in all of their areas. They've increased with students with disabilities. They've increased for all students. So they are doing good with their IE squared accountability. Okay. So Forsyth County has some special education improvement plan goals already in place. Goal number 1 for them is to provide professional learning and resources to increase students with disability achievement scores that are developing or higher by 2% on each subtest. Goal number 2 is to increase graduation rates of students with disabilities from 89.1% to 90% for the school year 2017 by focusing on student advocacy skills and self-awareness of learning. Goal number 3 is to develop procedures, practices, and professional learning in the areas of assessment and data collection to support student learning and behavior by the implementation of unique progress monitoring and identifying key staff members to provide behavior supports at each school. Okay. They also have student support service improvement goals. Goal number 1 for them is to increase the percentage of students who report feeling successful at school. They want to increase that from 86% to 88%. Goal number 2 is to decrease the percentage of students who report feeling intense worries and fears at school from 20% to 16%. And then goal number 3 is to increase the age of onset of alcohol use for Forsyth County students from 13.12 years to 13.6 years based on the 2017 Student Health Survey results. Okay, so after looking at all of the data, my biggest concerns for Forsyth County are with the question of why are some high schools decreasing in the graduation rates for students with disabilities? Also, the low scores on the parent survey for students with disabilities. Why do we have parents only saying that 47% of them, 50% of them think that things are occurring? The areas that were not met on the special education annual report had to do with the preschool years and also with parent involvement. On the student health survey, 12th graders are expressing that they do not like school as much. GAA scores have been dropping over the last 3 years, and less students are receiving EIP in the elementary years than years prior. Some ways to address these issues that I think would be primarily through staff trainings. Many teachers are not aware of the issues that the county is facing. For example, if special education teachers were aware of the things that parents were expecting from the special education parent survey, there are many things that they may do differently or provide in IEP meetings. Another area that needs to be addressed is within the area of preschool. We need to be ensuring that students are not falling through the cracks and getting missed. Waiting until they are in elementary school to identify them is causing them to already be behind. We also need to be focusing on the students in high school who are having the feelings of fear, the feelings that they don't fit in, the feelings that they don't have somebody to talk to. That could be a counseling service. That could be something that all teachers need to be aware that they need to be focusing on in their classrooms. They need to be sure that they are providing the appropriate support for all students or recommending them for support if they are not able to meet their needs. With many of the issues falling in the area of students with disabilities, I feel like the trainings are the primary need here. Teachers and service providers need to be trained on how to effectively work with our students with disabilities. They also need to ensure that they are purchasing appropriate instructional materials to be used. And that's about all I have for you today for Forsyth County. Thank you for listening.